This year is the 25th anniversary of 9/11, a day that changed everything. In the weeks that followed, thousands of people poured into Ground Zero to help, and among them was a man named Michael Dorrian. His story is one of courage, compassion, and quiet heroism. Today, author Neil Adam joins us to share his friend's journey and remind us that some stories deserve to be told no matter how much time has passed. Thanks for joining us, Neil.
Thank you for having me, Desiree.
Yes, I'm excited to talk about your book because you've written a book not just about anybody, but about Michael Dorrian, who was a lifelong friend to you. So can you tell us who he was and what drew him to volunteer at Ground Zero?
Absolutely. So Michael was a native New Yorker. He was a gay man who was HIV positive, and he was also a veterinary technician, not a vet, but a veterinary technician. And what drew him to Ground Zero, I think, were a couple of things. One, when the attacks in New York City happened that day, he thought, I have to be there, it's my city. I'm gonna do anything I can to help. I have a medical background, so I can help. But I think underneath that was kind of a karma thing, because Michael he made a lot of mistakes and transgressions in his youth that he wasn't proud of, nor should he have been. And I think he thought underneath that if he could help people on ground, it wasn't called Ground Zero on that day, it was still called The Pile. They didn't call it Ground Zero till maybe weeks later. But he thought if he could help out with that, it would help balance some of the bad mistakes he'd made in his life and kind of make up for things, because karma was a very big thing with Michael. So those are the things I think drew him there to help.
Yeah, and from what I understand, Michael's service at Ground Zero had lasting effects on his health.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So Michael, like I said, was a veterinary technician, and when the attacks happened, he was up in Queens and he thought, I can be there. So he threw on his scrubs, made his way down to the World Trade Center site. He made his way over to the fire chief. What can I do to help? And they said, if you can, help the firefighters who were on the piles, which is why I called the book From the Pile, because all of the debris, the asbestos, everything that was in the air was cutting their eyes. Their eyeballs were actually bleeding. So they gave him a lot of saline solution. So Michael spent 24 hours on the North Tower primarily, pouring saline solution into the eyes of the firefighters to help them do that. And so as he's climbing over all that rubble for 24 hours, and the firefighters had given him some protective gear. They gave him a helmet, they gave him a respirator, a blanket, some boots and things, but he was still in scrubs, so his wasn't that well protected. And so as he's climbing over all this rubble, his legs are sinking into these things, periodically. And those things, after about 15 years or so, it was about 2015, 2016, when Michael was diagnosed with stage 4 skin cancer, a mutated form of skin cancer. And they were able to trace that back to his time on 9/11.
Okay, and it sounds like he was a man who saw there's something, this is happening to my city, I'm gonna do whatever I can.
Absolutely. Michael was someone who says, I'm gonna be there to help. He was just such a helpful person, which is also why he wanted to, become a veterinary technician. He loved animals and wanted to help animals, help their parents and everything, just make people's lives better.
Yeah, and how did Michael's HIV diagnosis influence his service to his community?
Well, Michael was diagnosed with HIV when he was 16 years old. So it was 1983. It was really early in the AIDS crisis. No one knew anything about it. And so he had it his whole adult life. So Michael was a fighter. He wanted to survive. He was going to beat it. He wanted to be the person, when there was a cure for HIV, he wanted to be the first person in line. So Michael lived his whole life overcoming HIV and overcoming as many health issues as he had, throughout his life. And so, but the service to the community was a big part of that. But just fighting, overcoming obstacles was something that was just inherent in him.
Yeah. And I think what makes this book so special is it's written from the perspective of you as his lifelong friend.
Yeah.
So how did your personal relationship with Michael kind of shape the way that you told his story?
Well, I tried to be as objective as possible. We became very fast friends and were each other's confidants in a lot of ways. So when I first met Michael, and probably I hadn't even known him a year yet, I thought, this guy is so fascinating. He's had such an interesting life. I have to write his story.
Yeah.
And as he started telling me things that happened in his youth and as he was coming up, there were things that he wasn't proud of, nor should he have been. And he thought, don't write my story. I don't think we should do this. And I thought, okay, I'll drop it. And as our friendship had its own ups and downs, and I talk about this in the book as well. And we had a rift in our friendship. We didn't speak for about 4 years. And 9/11 happened during that time. And when we reconnected, and we were very happy to reconnect, we'd both grown up. We were really glad to be back in each other's lives. And I learned about his, heroism on that day. I thought, I have to write his story if he'll let me. And as he got sick, towards the end. And I always kept the idea in the back of my mind as I saw everything that was happening in his life, his relationships with his partners, with his family, with his job, all the obstacles that he had, his health-related issues. And, towards the end, I thought, like, Michael, I would really like to tell your story if it's okay. And luckily, he gave me his blessing to do so. So I did that.
I think that's a beautiful thing.
And I just tried to be as objective as I possibly could with it, because you have to be honest when you're writing someone's story.
Yes, yes. Well, thank you, Neil, for sharing Michael's story and letting us learn a little bit more about him and his act of heroism as well.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me,
Yes,
Desiree.
happy to. Well, to our viewers, From the Pile, a biography by Neil Adams is available where books are sold. You can learn more by heading to readneiladams.com.